Hey, what's going on, guys? Fizz here. It has been a while, so real quick, I'm gonna speed run where I've been at. So basically, towards the end of the Merry Fizmas League, I was supposed to go to Colorado for a few days to visit with my family. My mother and my sister have still not met in person. Well, they hadn't met in person. My fiance, who I've been with for like 8 years at this point, so kind of a long trip overdue. It's just kind of a side effect of living in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and being super far away from family. So hadn't seen him in a long time. So went to do that. Unfortunately, directly after getting there, I had COVID, BA5, and I ended up being super sick and ended up having to quarantine for a very long time and ended up staying well past what I was supposed to because I was contagious and too sick to fly, obviously. So got back a few days ago and have been kind of like digesting all the information and everything. I did stream the announcement. I will have a separate video going over all of my thoughts, but I was excited to share this with you guys, and I think this is what people care most about. I know it's a little bit out of order, but this is what I want to get into first. This is going to be my league starter for 3.19. Now, I'm not finished tweaking this. I will keep tweaking this probably up to the day of, and once I'm actually playing in 3.19, there will probably be changes that happen after that as well. So just a heads up, this isn't the final product. I've been changing a few things around every day so far. So I'm going to be playing Sunder. I know that's not a very popular opinion to have right now, that Sunder is viable or playable. I know that Alec played it on his stream and he played it very differently to how I plan to play it. Hot take, I think Sunder will be viable. Do I think it's the strongest melee skill? No, I don't. But I want to play it, and I think they took a skill that was borderline and they pushed it over the line, basically. And the big thing with Sunder is the 20% more damage is nice. But Sunder's problem wasn't really damage. I mean, melee as a whole kind of struggles with damage, like when you really get down to it, outside of a few outliers. But so like the damage was nice, but the problem with Sunder really was like mechanical, which was the time it took for Sunder to come out and not being able to overlap waves. Well, if you guys are coming to me for me to tell you how it's going to work in 3.19, I can't, because nobody knows. I would say just wait for the day of. I know that's shit advice, but I've seen so much math that contradicts everything all over the internet. No one can seem to agree how that 60% wave speed increase is going to actually change Sunder. What, like, people were trying to equate it to what it's like wave delay reduction, which is a stat in the game you can get from anomalous Sunder. I think it's anomalous Sunder. Like what percentage of that the 60% wave increase would be, speed increase, and it's just all over the place. No one can agree on anything. No one knows how it works, so we're just gonna wait. I am planning, I think, endgame to be running anomalous Sunder anyway, just because I think it's cool. The build doesn't have ashes, like my PoB doesn't have ashes. If I end up getting one, I may use it, just because ashes got honestly really buffed this league with the changes to mana reservation efficiency, so ashes is even more worth. I think I got one ashes last league, and I got 2 omnis, I believe, and I wasn't really focused farming until my private league. So if I decide that I really want an ashes, like if I feel like I need one, I will get it. I know this is a lot of preamble getting into the build, but I feel like we need to kind of talk about the skill first. Because a lot of people think it's not going to be viable. I think it's not going to be playable. And a big reason is outplayed it pre-buff version on stream this past week, and he thought it was terrible. And I've seen a lot of people messing around with it. I've seen Havoc videos. None of them have built it like I have built it. And I think the way that I have built it is viable. So I'm sure you guys have seen, like, if you consume my content, you probably spend a little bit of time on Twitch. You probably know Quantric. You probably know a lot of the HCSSF racers. So there's like tech where people are talking about Hydrosphere with Battle Mage Cry and stuff, and I looked into it and I was playing around with it a little bit. I don't have a solid number for you compared to what I'm doing, but the way that I see it is this is not a Rage Vortex build, but I do utilize Rage Vortex. So when you take out War Cries and needing to use all of that socket pressure allocated for the War Cry nodes and the passives, you free up a lot of room to do other things. And I think with the wave increase, especially with Anomalous Sunder, Sunder will feel good enough to be able to get away with not having to use war cries and going for pure attack based with no war cries outside of one with call to arms, which I'll get into later. So my thought process here was, well, we save a lot of sockets. So if we take like Battle Mage Cry and we use Hydrosphere, one, it's super finicky. It's going to be very inconsistent. It's very hard to actually calculate the raw damage increase you're getting from it, because if I'm on a boss and I'm attacking over 3 times a second, Battle Mage Cry only exerts 5 attacks, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure it's 5 without Admonisher or whatever it's called. What is it called? Measured Fury, excuse me. So that's 5 attacks that I will go through in like a second and a half, meaning after a second and a half for between 4 to 6 seconds, depending on if I've taken deep breaths or not, I will not be able to reposition Hydrosphere. So if the boss moves, I just lose all of that damage. Now, why does Hydrosphere give Sunder damage? Well, Sunder has multiple components to it as a skill. It works a little similarly to Bone Shatter, I guess you could think of it that way. So you have the waves, which pulse out, obviously, and then each wave can actually hit an enemy, up to 5 enemies, and pulse a shock wave around them of the radius of the original wave. So for my POB here, my radius on the first wave is 15. So I can get, in a pack of mobs per wave, I can get 5 shock waves that can overlap and kind of, for lack of a better word, shotgun while you're clearing packs. However, that's always been why Sunder doesn't have good single target, is because you can't overlap all of those explosions, all of those shock waves to get damage. So the deal with Hydrosphere is, even though it's got a 1-second cooldown now, you throw Hydrosphere on the boss, you're hitting it, and every second, because that's the cooldown of Hydrosphere now, every second the shockwave will put 60% of Sunder's damage, because that's how much the damage of the shockwave is, if I recall correctly. 60% of that will go on the boss. So basically you get 2 shockwaves every second instead of 1. Which, when I'm attacking over 3 times a second, and I won't be able to reposition the Hydrosphere very much, seems kind of even going with Iron Will and using that to scale Battle Mage Cry with deep breaths, it's about like 100%, I think, with this tree, and no strength on gear, because I just, for gear, I go like bare minimum for POBing builds. I try to go like as like almost like to unrealistic levels of bad gear, because I would rather be pleasantly surprised than feel like I'm struggling because I can't get the gear that I list in my PvP. So with no strength on gear whatsoever, it was about 100% increased damage during the buff. So Battle Mage Cry actually has a buff portion and an exerted portion. The exerted portion is what would be casting the Hydrosphere. The buff duration is static for the most part. It does not run out with attacks. It just lasts a set amount of time. And that is what is giving you the extra damage. But here's the thing. This would be a DPS increase, and it would be worth going for if Rage Vortex didn't exist, in my opinion. So I am not building around Rage Vortex. However, Rage Vortex deals a lot of damage, and I don't see any reason like why I would choose this kind of finicky tech that will also cost me more passive points over just using Rage Vortex, which gives me a lot more DPS, a lot more consistently, and I have full control over it. That's my current thoughts. There is one kind of thing that I'm uncomfortable with the build, and that's simply endurance charge generation. I haven't really figured that out yet. I don't think inexorable is worth it or consistent, since obviously there's no self-harm in this build. But we don't have Enduring Cry, so we don't have free endurance charge generation, and I don't like that. So I will try to be looking into stuff around that at some point. Maybe I just grab the implicit on chess, but I feel like that wouldn't be worth. I feel like that wouldn't really be worth it, because I would have to invest more in that. As you can tell, there's still stuff going on in my mind. Anyway, let's get into it. So Sunder. So I guess first I'll explain the DPS here. So I have 2 Sunders listed. That's because, like I said, the wave does damage and the shockwave does damage. So I just have both of them in the links here. one is set to the wave and one is set to the shockwave. So I can have both showing in the full DPS at the right time, or at the same time rather. Also, I didn't know this. Maybe you didn't know this. I found this out the other day watching a bench stream. As you do, you always learn something in a bench stream. Apparently full DPS in PoB is really buggy and doesn't calculate full DPS correctly. I never noticed. I heard him say that. I manually added up all the DPS between my stuff, and it was like 500 to 600k off of what the full DPS was. So now you know. Another thing that I will mention when it comes to calculating DPS is Rage Vortex is calculated very strangely in full DPS. If we go down here, this is super not correct simply because we're taking Warbringer. I'll explain the mechanics for Rage Vortex here and why we're using it in build. We're using Warbringer. So anytime we have more than 25 rage, anytime we use a Warcry, we sacrifice 10 rage, and we get 50% more attack damage for exerted attacks if we have sacrificed said rage. Okay, that's the way it works. We don't care about the rage generation or any of that. We don't care about any of that. Basically, we get 50% more damage when we exert an attack. That's all you need to know. So what we're doing is we're running Call to Arms, and we're going to be using Intimidating Cry. And the way this works is when I get to max rage, which is 75, I will pop Intimidating Cry, and I will throw out a Rage Vortex. And that Rage Vortex will be dealing double damage due to Intimidating Cry, and will be dealing 50% more damage due to Warbringer. That's the only reason I have this node, and it is worth taking it. So this overall DPS you see that is like 5%, less than 5% total, is not really realistic, because the way, if I'm correct here, the way you would calculate this is you would change Warcry to max hit on the Rage Storm, because this is how much damage it would be doing when it lines up with Intimidating. So then you would take your combined total damage, and then you would multiply it by your attack rate, and that's your damage for the Rage Vortex with Intimidating. And then you would just have to average that out with the amount of uptime you would have, which when we're getting into it, I'm sorry if this is a little bit confusing, but you don't, this is just for people who care about the mechanics and why I'm choosing this. You don't need to know to copy this. So Intimidating Cry has a 8-second base cooldown, and we get cooldown recovery rate with quality. Now, realistically, it is probably worth it to path for deep breaths, but it is 7 points. Because it's, I believe, yeah, 6 to get here and then 1 for the mastery, because you don't want Leap Slam to exert your attacks. And like I said, I only want to use Rage Vortex as supplementary damage. I do not want this to be a Rage Vortex build that just uses Sunder to like generate rage. Because I know Ben has like a Rage Vortex build, and there's going to be some similarities here. It wasn't planned. I POB'd this before Ben was doing his Rage Vortex stuff. So, but there will be a few similarities. Anyway, it's probably worth taking this. I may end up taking it at some point. This is going to depend on how it feels, my boss damage and stuff like that. Because effectively, I think it's like a 6-second cooldown. I can check. Intimidating Cry. Yeah, it's 6.1 seconds without deep breaths, and when you do take deep breaths, it's like 4 seconds. Anyway, so what you would do is you take this damage and you would average it out with your uptime of the Rage Vortex, and that's how you would do it. So obviously Intimidating Cry will exert 2 attacks. We don't have Measured Fury, it's only 2, so it's not 3. And we would get 1 Giga Rage Vortex, and then we would just have 1 Sunder that did double damage for 1 attack, which doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. But if I'm correct, that's how you would realistically calculate the DPS of the Rage Vortex. So this average isn't really correct. It should be, in reality, more than that. So I guess let's go ahead and we'll get into the links, and I'll explain the links first. I've played around with a lot of different stuff. So I'm using Sunder with Brutality, Fortify, Melee, Fizz, Close Combat. All of this makes sense so far, right? So the interesting bit comes in with the 6th link. Originally I was using Ruthless just because it's the highest damage. However, Pulverize is right behind it in terms of actual DPS output. It does reduce my attack rating, like my attacks per second, a decent chunk. You'll notice I go from 3.66 to 3.12. However, I feel like I can make that sacrifice. And the reason why is because in this build, we don't use Call of Steel. With the reservation changes, we obviously can't fit in Herald of Ash. How do we clear? This was my biggest problem, right? All the math checks out. The damage will be good enough. The survivability will be good enough. Like everything is there on paper. I can get all the stats that I want for the most part, and everything is fine. However, there's one big thing anyone who's ever made a build in PoE knows, regardless of how good the PoB looks, how does it actually feel to play? So that's the one thing that I went about testing. How does clear feel if we have no actual clear supplements? Why not Call of Steel Fizz? Two reasons. One, our attacks per second are incredibly high, which with the wave buffs, especially for using Anomalous Sunder, we should be able to hit everything multiple times anyway very quickly, and that shouldn't really be a problem in terms of clearing that way. Like almost like Call of Steel would take passive points and a socket and kind of like waste time that I could have just attacked once or twice more to clear up those mobs anyway, right? That's a line of thought there. And the second reason is, yeah, I don't have any open sockets. If I did have open sockets, maybe I'd play around with it, but I don't. We're very tight on sockets simply due to Rage Vortex. I may, you know, I'll get into that when we go more into the rest of the sockets. Anyway, so for clear, I was originally planning to just play around with Ruthless. So the 6th link, like I said, is super up in the air. I didn't decide on anything. This was just the numbers. However, Pulverize will always give me this consistent damage, so it would feel a lot better than Ruthless for clearing straight up anyway. And Pulverize gives me a lot of AoE, which Berserker has none of. Sunder would get it with quality, but I would like to eventually get Anomalous, so I can't rely on that. And then I don't really, like, just grabbing, like, these AoE nodes down here feels really bad on the tree. It doesn't give you anything except AoE. These 2 minor nodes is 20% increased damage, but 20% increased damage for 3 passive points feels really bad. I don't know. I feel like you don't really have that type of wiggle room on melee builds right now. So how do we clear? Well, lucky for you guys, sorry, flashbang. I didn't know this was maximized. Lucky for you guys, I have a little handy paint here that took me a few minutes to drop. So how can I explain this? This is Sunder, and this is how Sunder works, right? So these are the waves, and you'll get more waves than this, but this is just a little baby illustration, right? So this is how Sunder works. Like, all these diamonds are going to be monsters, and these thingies, pentagons, are Sunder waves, okay? So the way this works is every single one of these monsters that is in a wave, everything here will get hit by the wave and take damage. But then a shockwave will come out here from this monster, this guy here. Shockwave will come out from this guy right here. This guy gets clipped, so a shockwave comes out from him, and a shockwave comes out from him, and a shockwave comes out from him, and him, and him, and him. Because the waves in Sunder do have a little bit of overlap to them. So it would look a lot more like this. And each one of these individual waves can proc 5 shockwaves. So every wave can hit up to 5 enemies and proc 5 shockwaves. So when you're hitting stuff, bam, 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 you're getting this damage everywhere, right? Which, even by itself, I was a little bit concerned by the small AoE of Sunder. So I was like, you know what we could do is just use Pulverize. The damage is almost identical to Ruthless, but it will feel way better to clear because that damage will be on every hit, and we get a lot of AoE for free. And again, the actual DPS values are almost identical. It's not like a slam build where we have such little attack speed anyway that we would feel super slow and sluggish on bosses using Pulverize when we don't have Onslaught and stuff carrying us. This attack right here is with 1 Frenzy charge because of my Anoint and with no Onslaught. So this is my attack rate on bosses. This is not PoB warriored up, okay? So if we have Onslaught on and the 3 Frenzies we'll have while clearing, it's 3.48, and that's while using Pulverize. Without it, it would be like well over 4, I think, without Pulverize. But that's the Pulverize, okay? So it's almost identical in terms of DPS with Ruthless, but way more consistent because every hit has the damage instead of only the 3rd hit, right? and it gives us the AoE. Now, there is one other component to this, and this is Impaler. So the way Impaler works, kind of scuffed ever since they nerfed Ground Slam Impaler way back in the day. However, for this specifically is quite good, and you will have noticed that I was running Impaler early on my Bone Shatter guy in that build diary. So this is a very similar concept, but it works a little bit better with Sunder. The basics here, sorry for the creepy music, by the way. This is Moo Online. You guys know what that is. Anyway, so Impaler, when your hits impale enemies, also impale other enemies near them, and inflict 4 additional impales for a total of 5. So when we throw out our Sunder, and those waves hit everything here, everything is immediately at 5 impale stacks, and each one of those shock waves, all of those shock waves I drew, all of these are going to be hitting with all those additional impales. So with one attack, you're getting way more damage, and it can really benefit from that like overlapping like type shotgun effect with Impaler. Like the super basic way I can explain this is like, let's say our average damage here is 500k, right? With 5 stacks of Impale, we can basically take 50% of this, which is 250,000. Oops. Which will put us at 750,000. So the base waves go from dealing 500k to 750k while we're hitting a pack, right? However, this is the big thing. The average damage of the shockwave is, let's say, 300k here, right? So half of that is obviously 150k that's being added. So now each shockwave is doing 450k. But this is multiplicative in nature, you might notice, because we're hitting a pack of mobs. So this is 150k per shockwave per monster hit. And remember, we're getting 5 shockwaves per Sunder wave. And you guys know how monster density is in this game now. It's crazy, right? So this is very consistent. You'll hit this a lot. So this isn't just like a very minor damage increase like Impaler would normally be. Because you have all of those overlapping explosions from the shockwaves, you're getting way more damage, way more bang for your buck. Now, when you're bossing, you still will want to unspec Impaler, but for the large majority of your mapping experience, and just like gameplay when you're not doing like pinnacle bosses and stuff, keep that spec. Like the difference between not having this and having this is massive. I tested it. It feels way different with it versus without it. I hope that explanation makes sense. If it doesn't, feel free to ask. I'm trying to go over a lot of things. We are 23 minutes in, and I'm just trying to get all of the mechanics and the ideas I had to make this work out of the way first. So we've gone over Rage Vortex. We've gone over how we're supplementing our clear. Now let's talk about the actual stuff here. All right, so those are the links for Sunder, right? We have Brutality, Fortify, Melee Fizz, Close Combat, and Pulverize. Now, if you have any other questions about this, these are just generic, melee supports. These are, Close Combat, if you're using axes, absolute god tier, you need to use it. Melee Fizz, it's just the highest damage you can get. Fortify, because getting Fortify through gyms is stronger than getting it through tree, especially when we don't have the passive points to spare. And then Brutality is Brutality. It's the one support we have that doesn't give us like less attack speed multipliers that in Close Combat in modern day. So moving on, I will talk about the auras we're using. We're using Pride, Blood and Sand, Dread Banner, and Determination. So with this POB, I'm running a double unset setup with Dread Banner and Determination. There is the chance that I might end up running a like 5-link Rage Vortex with one open socket instead of a 6-socket Rage Vortex. Instead of that, I would be running just like Dread Banner or Determination or something else in that 6-socket on the chest. And that's what I'll be doing at League Start anyway. Like realistically, you don't need an unset setup to run this. Like on League Start, you're going to have a 6-link chest very easily, or a 6-link chest, a 6-socket chest very easily. Or, vice versa, a 6-socket weapon. And then you just need Rage Vortex on a 4-link, and then you'll run Dread Banner and Determination in the remaining 2 sockets, right? So that's what you'll be doing until endgame. But endgame, when you do have a double 6-link setup, I have a double unset here. If you want, you could run a 5-link Rage Vortex and use a Vermilion ring to get a little bit more life. If you wanted to, you can do that. But this is the current POB. I'm also using a Drox ring. This is just for Vuln on hit. I do want a Vuln on hit ring. So I have weighed, because I am using Rage Vortex in the build, I weighed out the math between going for Poachers Mark for frenzy charges on single target and just Vuln for damage. And there's a big thing here. So you notice like the Rage Vortex builds that use the Blade Storm into Rage Vortex. Blade Storm bleeds for free. And all of their damage pretty much is coming from Rage Vortex. So they want those hits because Frenzy Charges is, 12% more damage multi, and it gives more attack speed, which is like one of the strongest scalers for Rage Vortex. POB will lie to you and say that it isn't, but it absolutely is like the biggest like damage scaler for Rage Vortex, right? So they can just go for Poacher's Mark. However, we're playing Sunder, so there's a few things here. First off, we don't bleed. Second off, and I'll explain why bleeding is important in a second. Second off, I want the actual hits to benefit me while mapping. So what I've done is I've actually anointed Disciple of the Slaughter, which will give me 1 frenzy charge while bossing, and will give me obviously full frenzy charge uptime while mapping. The reason why is, 1, we don't have sockets for Blood Rage, but even if we did, we wouldn't want to run it due to Rite of Ruin. If you don't know what Rite of Ruin does, basically it gives you like a degen, so you do need a socket for good leech and good life regen to counteract the degen of Rite of Ruin. With Blood Rage, the degen gets a lot stronger, so if you get hit by like, like Corrupting Blood or, one of the copious amounts of degens in the game now, it will degen you way faster and it can be dangerous. So you want to counteract that degen for safety and quality of life, right? So, in comes Vulnerability. Now, Curse on hit rings, for the most part, for most builds, I would say, in current patches, haven't been very popular. However, I think Vuln is the best curse for this build because, 1, it helps us while clearing, right? It helps a lot with Sunder. 2, Vulnerability has an innate chance to poison. And by poison, I mean bleed. So, Vulnerability has, when they're cursed, they have a chance to be bled, right? Now, if you'll notice here, our Sunder hit is a lot higher than our Rage Vortex hit. So Sunder is about 500k, Rage Vortex is 170. So what that means is that when they're bleeding from Sunder, we can actually use Bloodlust on Rage Vortex, which is a very, very, very strong damage support. So full-on Blade Storm Rage Vortex builds can use this for free, because Blood Storm on Blade Storm just guarantees a bleed on the enemy. There is the chance that when you proc Warbringer with a max hit of let me see, actually, let's check this. Oops. Yeah, so there's a chance here. This says a little bit shy of 500k if we go to max hit. That this might go a little bit over what Sunder does. Yeah, what is that? 488k versus, I'm blind, help. There it is. Yeah, it's 5k over. So we'll have to see if this ends up, it is close. It is close. So the reason why that's important is because bleed will like overwrite like an ailment. If an ailment is stronger, it will overwrite. So if I already have them bleeding from Sunder and then I intim and throw out the Rage Vortex, if that bleed overwrites it, then it may, oh no, I'm wrong, just disregard everything. Okay, I misunderstood Bloodlust. This just came to my mind and I was like, oh crap, maybe I can't do that. Part of me still iterating the build. Supported attacks cannot cause bleeding, so we don't care. I thought you didn't get the damage if the supported attack caused the bleed. But that's not the case. It just can't bleed, so we don't actually care. It works no matter what. Sick. Okay. Well, I don't have to figure that out then, do I? Anyway, so Bloodlust is one of the strongest supports you can get, but it basically needs to be a 2-part setup because, again, you can't bleed with this. Like I said, the reason I had this thing a second ago is because I thought Bloodlust wouldn't get the additional damage if the skill linked to it caused the bleed. But turns out the skill linked to it just can't bleed at all, so it doesn't actually matter. So Sunder will bleed them due to Vuln. I think a level 1 Vuln is a 20% chance to bleed. Obviously, I would want a tier 1 roll, which is 32% effectiveness of curses, and I don't know what level of curse that ends up being, but either way. They will be permanently bled. I will permanently have the damage from Bloodlust. If I had to drop a support here, it would probably be Pulverize, as I'm pretty sure this is the lowest damage support of all of them. And I don't really care about the AoE, since it's not really, I'm not clearing with this. I don't need that AoE. It's mostly just for single target supplement. So if I end up doing the 5-link setup to save a ring slot and use a Vermilion instead, I will get rid of Pulverize. So this is the optimal 6-link setup. I will say, I added Bloodlust last, but Pulverize should be your lowest priority here. I think everything else here is fine. The only time you would use Pulverize over Bloodlust is if you don't have a Vuln on hit ring. I think what I may do early league is run a like level 1 vulnerability in my cast when damage taken setup to get Vuln on bosses. Just for the extra damage. You know, this used to be a very common tech. So if you've been playing for any amount of time, like I would say like maybe 2 years, you will be familiar with the cast when damage taken level 1 curse setup. So that may be what I end up doing. Anyway, moving on. Typical totem setup. We have Vol Ancestral War Chief, Ancestral Protector, multiple totems, and Maim. Yeah, is what it is. I don't have this included in full DPS, but according to POB, they are about 1 million DPS with Vol Ancestral War Chief off. Obviously, if we turn this on, we gain another about like 900k DPS, but you just don't want to assume that, especially for boss fights. You won't really have much, if any, uptime on Vol Ancestral War Chief, depending on the boss. Stuff like Elder and stuff, you have it up a ton, but you know, you want to be as general as possible when you're making a POB if you're not making it for one specific reason. So Vol Ancestral War Chief is off, and I have this DPS not included in the full, even though you want to have as much uptime as possible on your totems, simply because Maim by itself, you know, you deal a bunch of extra damage to Maim targets. So having Maim on your totems, you already want to have as much uptime as possible, in addition to having all that extra attack speed from Protector and all the more multi from War Chief. So you want as much uptime as you can. However, I don't like including their DPS in my full POB. They will contribute quite a bit to the overall damage by the end of the boss fight, but it just feels, it feels kind of like fake DPS, if that makes sense. Moving on, in the helmet, I just have Leap Slam, faster attacks, Intimidating Cry, and Frost Blink. Nothing here should be shocking or new. If you're wondering why level 1 Intimidating Cry, it's because nothing really changes as you increase this. Mana cost goes up, you know, DD flashbacks. Moving on from there, like I said, these Dread Banner and Determination, they have their own unset placement. Early league, before you have a double 6-link, you will just use Rage Vortex on a 4-link and use Dread Banner and Determination in the 2 open sockets there. And then just use unsets as you gain them, right? And I did test this, by the way, of just a 5-link, and the DPS is still completely fine if you're running Rage Vortex on a 5-link. So don't be scared that if you drop a link there for to end up using a Vermilion or something endgame, that it like bricks your damage. Your damage will still be fine. And then finally, I guess cast when damage taken, VMS, a 110 setup this time instead of the 211 I normally run with. And then Pride is Pride, and Blood and Sand. Blood and Sand is simply just more damage. It's really nice to run. It's a very cheap aura too. It's only 10% before reservation and efficiency is factored in. So it's very cheap. You won't really ever swap to Sand Stance. You basically just use this as a damaging aura, if anyone doesn't know. So basically we just get 15% more damage for running this, which is very good for 10% reservation. And friendly reminder to always quality your Pride. Quality Pride with Bannerman. I can find it. Okay, so there it is. So this is the range, right? Once you have quality Pride, and this is also why I have max effective Pride in my damage config, right? Is because once you've got your quality Pride and you've taken this wheel here with Bannerman and Champion of the Cause, you're pretty much screen wide at this point. So pretty much every endgame boss you're going to be able to have my max Pride effect on. Even if they're like TPing away and whatever, they're still going to be in range of this. 64 radius is massive. So once you flip your pride, make sure you do that because it absolutely is worth it. It's not like other auras where you don't need the AoE if you're not playing multiplayer. You absolutely want to flip pride. It may be common sense to some people, but a lot of people don't do this. Like if you go on PoE Ninja, there's tons of people that never quality their pride. Quality your pride. It makes a difference. Anyway, that's everything in terms of the sockets. So let's go over the tree. I'll kind of explain the reasoning here. If you guys are curious for leveling, just a quick, dirty like run through. I path through the damage nodes up top, through Born to Fight. I go through Butchery, through Barbarism, and then rush Resolute Technique. I also grab Versatility early. This is gonna when I grab this, will largely depend on if I can get an early a gate. No, that's not a gate. I'm blanking. The Int Amulet. It depends on if I get an early Int Amulet after Submerged Depths. If I can buy that, and Nessa's offering it, I will just buy that and use Frostblink early on. If she doesn't offer that with Submerged, once you get to Submerged Depths, then I will pass straight to Versatility to have a movement skill, because you can't use a movement skill on Marauder if you don't have something, because you either need more Dex to use Dash or more Int to use Frostblink, because fuck Marauder. So yeah, basically once you go to Submerged Depths and you're here at Born to Fight, if Nessa is offering you an Int Ami, take it, and then you don't need to worry about Versatility for a little bit. If she isn't offering, or I forget what I just said. If she is offering, you don't need to take it. If she's not offering, take it now. And then you will need to grab Versatility anyway at some point, because you need to use Blood Rage and stuff like that in Act 2. So you're going to need the Dex anyway, and it's the cheapest pointer here, and it also gives some move speed for leveling. So you will be grabbing it at some point. It's just a matter of when, okay? Anyway, path through, rush RT. After that, what I did on my practice runs is I actually went down from here. I went straight into Slaughter, get all the attack speed, and right now the POB doesn't have this, but I actually took the Onslaught. It's just down here right now. But I took Onslaught effect here because you should be leveling with Onslaught in your links, just to zoom as fast as possible. And then from there, you know, depending on what you need, you go for life if you want it, more damage if you want it. Definitely don't take cleaving early on. Cleaving is something you're going to take way later on, like well into maps. And then just make your way down here. So the goal after you grab this stuff is get a little bit of life, probably, because you're going to be at like the end of A2, start of A3. Grab Bloodlust, go for a Hatchet Master to get your Onslaught, and then you're going to want to grab the stuff here for Aura Reservation, Determination, Mana Reservation, all that garbage. I do remember that the Mana Reservation Mastery is gone next league, so you're going to have to factor that in. Early on, you're probably going to want to level with like Herald of Ash, mandatory, Pride maybe, or not Pride, sorry, Herald of Purity, and then you replace it later once you swap over to Determination. I swapped to Determination around Act 5, about there, once I start really feeling like I need that damage mitigation. And I was leveling with like Herald of Ash and stuff. So just depending on what you want to run. If you're like newer and you're playing hardcore and you're scared of dying, you can maybe run Vitality instead of Herald of Purity and run some other stuff. But I was using War Banner, Herald of Ash, and Herald of Purity for the most damage and zooming. And then obviously ignore the Impale nodes and stuff while leveling. Those don't come into factor until you start using Pride and you drop Herald of Ash. Anyway. So yeah, we're taking damage nodes here. I do take cleaving in this simply because it's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage, and it gives us Intimidate, which is really good. Intimidate strong. I like Intimidate. So originally I was expecting a Wrecking Ball, and then I realized that I need to go Martial Experience because we don't have Blood Rage. So unless I get Leech on like a ring or gloves or amulet or something, I have no Leech. So for now the tree is in Martial Experience. Technically Wrecking Ball is more damage. Martial Experience gives us better Leech. that'll depend. I would like at some point maybe an end game to fit in Wrecking Ball, but we'll see. Wrecking Ball is a lot. It says 11.4% damage increase overall, but it's actually more than that because of how I explained Rage Vortex calculations worked earlier. It's actually more than that. It's a lot more. POB drastically undervalues attack speed when it comes to Rage Vortex. So it's actually a juicy note. Anyway, Destroyer, you know, a lot of this is just basic pathing. You know, this just obvious stuff. Like, the only thing I would mention is we do path into Hardy. This is simply because of Rite of Ruin. Like I said, it does degen you pretty hard, Rite of Ruin, so that's why we grabbed that. And then finally, this may look very weird and suboptimal. And someone did show me Ben's POB because he passed over for Mage Bane and Reflexes. But there is a difference here. I think this ends up costing like 2 more passive points or 3 more passive points total or whatever. But we do gain, I believe, a little bit more life, assuming you grab Profane Chemistry. Nope, it's actually the same. So, well, assuming this is a 2-pointer versus a 3-pointer, right? But basically, the Entrenched Wheel here with the Mastery will give you more spell suppression, and you will have a much easier time capping your spell suppression. Whereas if you go this route, you need the Implicit on Gloves, and you'll also need to anoint. You will have to anoint Inveterate, unless you have like full perfect rolls on your spells, on your T1 spell suppression. Unless you have full perfect rolls, you'll need to anoint Inveterate, which is what Ben did. However, that's a black gold oil, and I don't want to be waiting on a black gold oil to have my cap spell suppression. And I don't want to give up my anoint. So this does save me anoint at the cost of a few passives. However, I have the option to have more life, and it drastically eases the gearing requirements, and it also takes care of some dex issues as well. So this is going to largely come down to preference, I think. I do prefer this, and I think this overall, even though it does look a little weird, especially when this looks way closer, like this looks prettier, right? This looks prettier than pathing all the way down out here. But I think especially for your average player and people who aren't Ben and are going to farm this oil in the first like few days of the league, and you know, are susceptible to dying, probably path this. This drastically reduces the threshold of gear that you will need to actually hit spell sup cap. It's much more gearing friendly, and it's a lot smoother and a lot easier. You can lose 2 passive points to achieve that, in my opinion. And with that anoint, like I said, we go Disciple of the Slaughter. This is a lot cheaper. It is 1 gold oil, but it's way better than black gold or whatever it was. It was black gold, right? Yeah, black gold. And it's not like black gold is like super hard to get or anything, but just on league start, especially because you already need to get full tier 1 spell suppress rolls, which means you need I-86, I-85, I-86 plus spaces anyway. So anything you can do to try to like ease that would help a lot. So anyway, running Disciple of Slaughter, basically this will be really good for clear. It says right here that it gives you like very little damage. You can kind of ignore that. Basically, I want the 1 frenzy charge while bossing. It's kind of whatever. And the big thing is that we'll give frenzy charges and stuff while clearing. It should feel very comfortable while clearing. So that's why I've taken it. So yeah, as you can see, it's like a 6% overall damage increase roughly for bossing. And then obviously obviously while mapping, this would be at a 3, so then it would be a lot higher. Anyway, I think that's all the interesting stuff. If you guys are wondering how we're capping Impale Chance, basically we're capping Impale Chance by grabbing full Merciless Skewing and full Harpooner. I'm taking the Mastery here for Dread Banner, Mana Reservation Efficiency. That's to kind of mitigate Reservation Mastery being gone a little bit. And with these 2 clusters, you're at, it's like 82% Impale Chance or something. And then I take the Bastion Breaker Fizz Mastery for 20% chance to impale, which caps us on Impale Chance. So I think that's everything. That is all the basic stuff. We go berserking. It's 10 max rage, which is really good for Rage Vortex, is really, really good for Rite of Ruin, and it also gives us attack mastery, 40% increased melee damage. It's pretty good for one passive. Anyway, all that aside, let's get into the ascendancies. Notify Pain, yes, that's correct. Notify Pain, basically after the base buffs and you know, determination existing. Now, Defy Pain can be a little bit redundant. You could theoretically make a case for it if you wanted to. You could go Defy Pain, drop Warbringer, and use Enduring Cry on your Call to Arms instead. You'd lose a lot of damage on your Rage Vortex, but you would be hell of a lot tankier. But it really shouldn't matter too much with this build. We'll have to see. If I feel like I just have like an abundance of damage and I can just afford to take even more damage out of Rage Vortex, maybe I will. We'll see. Either way, like I said before, you can't really trust the damage output that Warbringer is giving you here in PoB. It's a lot more than that you're getting from this overall. So we're going from Crave the Slaughter into Rite of Ruin, and this is the path that I took while leveling, if you guys are curious about Ascendancy order. Crave the Slaughter, Rite of Ruin, Aspect of Carnage, Warbringer last, simply because I don't even have the sockets to care about this early on, and I'd rather have 40% more damage all the time than 50% more damage, like, very small amount of the time. Basically, I'm at bosses. So Crave the Slaughter early on is good. You get 10 max rage. You get 1 rage on hit with attacks. This is whatever. Basically, by the time you're at the end of the zone while leveling, you'll attack pretty fast. And the rest of the time, nothing really happens. Which is kind of whatever. But you take it to get to Rite of Ruin, because once you pick up Rite of Ruin, you start zooming. And really cool, you're immune to stun during the campaign, which means Arcane Buffer can suck a fat one, and you're not constantly getting stunned all the time, because I feel like Arcane Buffer, especially in my practice runs, is just everywhere all the time. It should be less of an issue in 3.19 with drastically reduced amounts of rares and magic monsters, but it's very nice nonetheless. If you don't know what Rite of Ruin is, basically you lose 0.1% of life per second per rage while you're not losing rage, so anytime you're in combat. Inherent effects from having rage are tripled. So the inherent effects of rage are 1% increased AD per 1 rage, 1% increased attack speed per 2 rage, and 1% increased movement speed per 5 rage. So basically they're tripled. So every 1 rage is 3% increased attack damage. Every 2 rage is 3% increased attack speed. And every 5 rage is 3% increased move speed instead. So it literally just triples all that across the board. Very strong, especially when you have 75 rage. Also, this is where I'm going to know, I probably should have said earlier in the video, I'm not using Berserk in this build. It's not very common on Rite of Ruin builds to begin with anyway, but especially with this build, we want to stay at max rage all the time to maximize the benefit of Rite of Ruin, and we just sacrifice a little bit of rage every time we use Intimidating for big damage on the Rage Vortex, because Rage Vortex sacrifices a percentage of our current rage to deal more damage based on the rage sacrifice. Great synergy with Warbringer, dealing 50% more damage when we use that Intimidating Cry, which doubles the damage of Rage Vortex on top of that. So we get snapshotting, basically. So this node right here is basically just for Rage Vortex damage. It's our single target damage node. It's going to help a lot on bosses, and otherwise, it doesn't really matter. You'll pop it on like essence monsters and stuff too if you want, but should be fine otherwise. And then Aspect of Carnage kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? 40% more damage, 10% more, 10% increased damage taken. A lot of people see this and they get scared. I've played a million Berserkers in hardcore, and I don't think this has ever straight killed me, honestly. Every time I've ever died, it wasn't like, oh man, if I just took 10% less damage, I wouldn't have died. Granted, most of the time when I die on Zerkers lately, I feel like I die to slams. I feel like I die to slams a lot, like just boss slams, just doing dumb shit. Shout out to Phoenix in 3.15 or something. Anyway, I played a lot of Zerkers, and I don't think Aspect of Carnage by itself has ever straight killed me. So it's really not worth being super scared about, even in hardcore. There's a lot of defense in the game right now. We'll be spell suppression capped. I know it says 96% right here, but that's not actually factoring in the increased spell suppression we get on the entrench wheel and the glove implicit if I decide to grab that. Anyway, I believe that's everything. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I tried to go very in-depth onto the mechanics, why I chose what I chose, and why I think this will be good. Because that's important. A lot of people think Sunder is very bad right now. I have done practice runs with pre-buff Sunder, and it feels completely fine. The only thing is the wave speed doesn't feel good. 20% more damage based off my practice runs right now would feel amazing. It would feel really nice to just have 20% more damage for free, and the wave speed going a lot faster. I'm very excited to try that out. Maybe we go like Giga Tryhard and farm a bunch of lab, and we get buff Sunder with anomalous Sunder and the Helm enchant. That would be nuts, because then those waves would be going at the speed of light, and I could just attack with abandon and nothing would matter. Which you can already do in single target, by the way. That would only, a lot of that stuff would supplement clear and safety. It is worth noting that the build is quite safe. With the buffs to Fortify, you will have a lot of Fortify uptime, which you'll have anyway, because the Sunder can basically attack a full screen away. Like, if you hit, it'll go off screen already. So the increased wave speed means that you will be able to attack more from further away. More, like, you may not be getting the full distance, especially with just the base buff without Anomalous or the Helm enchant. But you would be able to, instead of standing like 2 waves away, like stand 4 waves away, which actually makes a big difference when it comes to uptime over the course of an entire boss fight. Being able to attack from like half a screen or 2/3 of a screen away versus having to be like right on top of them. Because if you guys don't know, the first 2 waves of Sunder just cannot be canceled. It doesn't matter how many attacks you do a second. The first 2 waves can't be canceled. Those first 2 always come out. So if you're standing right on top of the boss, you can attack as fast as you want anyway. But the wave speed increase will let you stand further away and still get those waves out. And then obviously Rage Vortex, that just goes until it hits something and then it stops moving, right? So it is pretty ranged, funnily enough. It is pretty ranged. It should be pretty safe for bossing. Should have good uptime with the wave speed increases and stuff like that. So I've played around with it. I've tested it. It feels fine. It feels fun to play. The Impaler Shockwave tech feels very nice for clear. I was like, it feels completely fine to play right now. I've been actually having a lot of fun testing it, and it will just feel way better on patch day. So I'm really looking forward to it. If you guys want to do something similar or have more questions or whatever, Discord link down below. Again, I know this is a very long video, but I really wanted to try to cover all the mechanics in depth to avoid any like, just to get as many questions that people would probably ask out of the way beforehand. I will do my best to timestamp everything down below. You guys know I'm usually really good about my chapters. I will try to, you know, stay on top of that with this video and all the specific questions that will be asked. And I think that's everything. Check out my stream, links down below. If you guys need help with this build or whatever, stop by the stream, stop by the Discord, do whatever. I do read all YouTube comments, even if I don't necessarily respond to all of them sometimes. And I think that's everything. Look for the next video tomorrow. I'll be talking about the 3.19 changes overall and what I think. Then there's another video coming of my planned build diaries. And then I may also throw out a video of like a few other interesting builds that might be worth looking into for 3.19 if you just want to try something new. Maybe not necessarily the super most meta stuff, but if you just want to do something a little bit different, maybe taking advantage of the new Trickster Ascendancy. But yeah, that's what's coming down the pipeline. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry it was so long. Like I said, I just wanted to go over everything. I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, you know, the stupid stuff. If you want to support me, Twitch, Discord, comment, like, subscribe, bell notification, all that garbage. You guys know how it works. You know, not your first time using YouTube. Anyway, peace. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Looking forward to 3.19. See you guys in the next one.